Hi, everyone. My name is Juan Duran. I am the CEO and one of the co-founders of EcoRegistry. Please be all of you very welcome to one of our webinar series. This time, today we have with us Vivian Belzeca from Blue Layer and Roman from Canop. So very happy for to be here, and actually thank you all for assisting to this webinar. As you know, from EcoRegistry side, we are proposing some webinars and some other knowledge and capacity building videos and different material that we are sharing with the community to help the ecosystem grow. And more specifically, and more important than that, is actually we believe that building this knowledge is very important so that people, project developers, communities, market participants, anyone can help enhance integrity around the market. And I believe that's one of the main topics that we have today, like how digital tools can help us in this process. So a little bit about EcoRegistry for the ones that don't know us. At EcoRegistry, what we do is we are a registration platform that offers the registry service for standards, actually. So we work together with standards, and when the project's developers wants to start their journey to issuing carbon credits or other environmental assets like biodiversity credits, circular economy, plastic credits. So what they do is that they enter on the platform, and what we allow is that all the interaction and all the documents, the data, it's uploaded on the platform so that the interaction with the auditors and the standard can be traceable, and every single change can be actually accounted for until the issuance process. So what we do is that we safeguard all that information as supporting evidence for the issuance process. And then afterwards, what we do after the issuance is that when the units actually are issued directly on the account of the owner of the project, then what happens is that they can transfer, retire, recognizing the end beneficiary, or connect to different exchanges around the globe. So I'm very happy to have here today with me Roman and Vivian. So I will just first, so this webinar will be split in three parts. The first part is an introduction about each one of the companies, each one of the participants that are here today with us. And then afterwards, we will have a small conversation between the participants and ourselves. And then at the end, we will have some time for questions. So please, if you have any question, feel free to put them on the chat or on the system you're in so that we can ask the participants any type of question. So I will start with Roman. Roman is the CEO and co-founder of Canop, where he leads the missions to empower organizations in meeting voluntary carbon market standards and making climate-related disclosures in line with frameworks like ESRS and TNFD, as well as complying with the EU's deforestation-free products regulations, known as the EUDR. Very important, all these tools. So with that expertise in nature-based solutions like digital MRV and biodiversity, Ramon leverages cutting-edge technology, specifically satellite imagery to an advanced AI, to provide accurate, scientifically validated, and auditable climate and biodiversity data. What does this mean? It means that he works, and at Canop they work a lot in innovative solution. So to get a detailed due diligence and effective monitoring of the regulatory compliance and nature-based carbon projects. And yeah, he has a very extensive experience, including, for example, at Clio AI, or Buzz, Ford, and BlaBlaCar. So, and he holds a Master of Science in Management from Emlyon Business School. So very happy to welcome you. And please, Roman, if you want to share with us a little bit more about Canop, we will be very glad to.
Sure. Thank you, Juan, for this very detailed introduction of myself and Canop. It's a pleasure being with you all today, and thanks again for the invitation. So yes, I'm going to share a few slides with our audience to explain in more detail what we do. In a sentence, maybe we can summarize what we do. As such, we empower nature-based project developers with data at Canop. So we do empower project developers along the project development lifecycle. So we support our customers at all stages, meaning at project assessment phase, when we help our customers assessing opportunities or review potential projects they might invest in. If in the case of an investor, obviously, our main focus is developers, but we're also working with investors, insurers, advisors. They enter upstream all upstream players. Then we support our customers at project design when it comes to, for instance, produce data for the PDD. And then, of course, during the crediting period, we support our clients with MRV reports. So how does it work? Most of the work we provide and we do is based on a platform, which is automated and very efficient. We provide accurate data. That's a big investment focus. Obviously, 7 people out of 9 people in our team focus on technology and science. We've built a scalable tool that anyone can use, and it works with polygons of a hectare or 1 million hectares, can be thousands of polygons. Compliancy with standards, obviously, and particularly the latest methodologies, which are leveraging remote sensing data. And of course, auditability is a key component so that VVBs can connect to the platform and also verify how things have been computed, so it's not a black box. Basically, a lot of what we do relies on remote sensing. So we use all sorts of remote sensing signals, optical, radar, LiDAR from space, plus a lot of AI, obviously, to deliver the data on a web platform or an API, depending on what's needed by the customer. Here are some screenshots of the platform. Basically, creating a project takes only a few seconds. Configuring the project also is quite fast. You can select the forest cover definition. You can parameters or allometry relations you need between BGB and AGB, for instance, and run data requests from there in a couple of clicks. And in a day, you basically get all sorts of data, all indicators through maps, stock maps, change maps, charts, and everything can be downloaded in a click. So you can use that on your side in reports or whatever document. We have 2 sorts of data product. One data product which is more tailored for screening, to screen product, which provides full archive between 13 and 23. And then we also have a monitoring product, more detailed, that provides confidence interval at 95%, can be recalibrated with your data. That's more tailored for MRV. Both products have global coverage. So that's for the platform. We also support our customers with bespoke service. So for instance, we have a number of customers at the moment for which we perform the performance benchmark for the latest IRR methodology from Vera, the VM0047. We streamline the entire processing of selecting the plots in the donor pool area and the project plots in the project area to establish the performance benchmark and the monitoring plan. We have an API, as I said, for the most advanced customers that manage a high number of projects or polygons. We've validated our data against different sources. We can mention JEDI, obviously, plus also ERS, Ecosystem Restoration Standards, has run a benchmark across the industry and has selected Canop as a provider for AGB data. We're a team of 9 people. And as I said, 7 of our are working on the science and technology side. We are mostly based in Paris, in France, and we have 1 person, Kobe, who's based in the US to support us on the business development. We've built a strong expertise in AI, in ecosystem, carbon, radar, computer vision, and infrastructure to ensure smooth processing of the data. We've built an advisory board as well to support us on the different fields that we're working on. and we have a commercial partnership with the European Space Agency to support our development. So that's in short, a short brief of CANUP. I'll be happy to take questions afterwards as well.
Thank you, Mo, for this great introduction. Very interesting, and I can testify. We have been testing your API solution already for some time at EcoRegistry, and I believe your technology and what you have been bringing to the market is very promising. Of course, enhancing like more information about the project. So thank you very much for having this solution. Yeah.
Thank you, Juan.
And next, yeah, perfect. And next, I will introduce Vivian Petseca. She is the head of climate and co-founder of Blue Layer, a software company that is building end-to-end operating systems for developers of carbon projects. Before co-founding Blue Layer, she was a founding partner of Just Climate, a climate-led investment platform across industrial and nature-based climate solutions, operating as part of Generation Investment Management. Vivian's sustainability journey began actually in 2010 when she joined Generation as an investor in the Climate Solutions Funds after having spent the first half of her career in more traditional finance. Vivian also sits on the board of Red Solar and ASA and Transition Zero and acts as senior advisor for Bloom Equity. So Vivian, you're very welcome, and we're actually happy to learn more about Blue Layer because we have seen that it has a lot of potential on bringing like project developers up to speed and actually giving them more tools to assess their projects and follow the process until the issuance process. So please, Vivian, if you can introduce us Blue Layer, that'd be great.
Thank you, Juan, and thank you very much to EcoRegistry for hosting us today. It's much appreciated. So as Juan said, I'm one of 3 co-founders of Blue Layer, which is the industry's first end-to-end software platform for carbon project developers to scale and deliver high-quality projects to the market. The reason Blue Layer was founded was that we felt that there was no dedicated system to help carbon project developers manage their projects and their credits end to end. And what we found from speaking to customers and prospects was that most projects are run on an assortment of data systems that don't always talk to each other and don't really scale easily. That includes often locally held inventory, order spreadsheets that don't really talk to registry accounts and then have a separate finance ERP and CRM with no access to central dashboards. So what Blue Layer really does is it connects data across the entire carbon lifecycle and enables one single source of truth that can be shared across the organization and, if needed, also with external stakeholders. So how do we do that? We started our journey from inventory and order management, and so we've created a comprehensive ledger that captures all the stages of a project, from the planning stages all the way to issuance and retirement of credits. And we've now also moved to capturing data and reporting functions associated with that. We cover integrations with a wide number of registries, but also with third-party tools, including data collection tools. And so we can integrate with most of the tools that developers use at the moment through API. And that way we enable Blue Layer to be the central platform that takes in all of that data, holds it centrally, and then creates also an opportunity to share that externally. I should add that our customers span the full range of activities. And so we have customers that cover everything from reforestation, forest conservation, all the way to durable CDR solutions like direct air capture. And amongst the things that we do for those clients is we enable them to digitize their workflows, to streamline carbon credit management, maximize carbon revenues, and also accelerate the verification process for their credits. You can see a few screens from the product here, but we'd be more than happy to run a demo for any of you that want to know more. Our developers come from all stages, all sizes, and all solution types, as I mentioned. And we already have some of the largest issuers of nature-based credits as our early customers. And so 3 of the top 10 issuers are using Blue Layer to run their carbon operations today. And we work with our customers throughout their entire project lifecycle, for their needs. And so from when they're just setting up all the way to when they're selling millions of credits. We recently published a case study alongside one of our first customers, Permian Global, for those of you that know them, which is available on our website. And so I do encourage you to read it if you want to find out more about how we help them manage their complexity across their credit portfolio. But really, what we feel sets us truly apart from everybody else is that we're not an intermediary and we're not a marketplace. And so we're fully aligned with our customers' outcomes. So Blue Layer is a software company, and our mission is to empower project developers who are the true change makers with the software that they need to scale and deliver high quality credits to the market. Finally, one quick word about the team before I pass it back to Juan. I'd say, we believe that we've brought together a mission-driven team that combines top software professionals from across the software space with top climate professionals and particularly experts in nature. And so our team has, in the past, grown and scaled 4 technology unicorns. It comes from 15 different countries. And we are also backed by 50 plus sustainability leaders and advisors that have been supporting us in our journey. So we think what we bring to project developers beyond just the access to the right software to scale their business is also expertise and support from many different areas of both the nature and the engineered CDR space to help them with their businesses as they scale those, as they start from very early on to the point that they actually become a lot larger. So I'll pass back to Juan. Thank you again for the opportunity to present.
Thank you, Vivian, and very clear. I really love that you have a diverse team that helps you actually understand maybe what the market expectations are, what the auditing expectations are, and actually convey with a platform that at the end is actually not just ensuring traceability and integrity, but it's also focusing on project developers, understanding their needs. Because actually you hear a lot on the market like, yeah, just get a satellite imaging, but doing it that in a scalable way and organizing all that information, getting the data, getting the sensor data, all those measurements, putting them all together, organizing, filtering bad data, and then doing something that is really useful for the project developer and saves a lot of time is something that is very valuable. But not a lot of people see the value on that. They want to see just results and fast, but to do it scalable is a whole different question. So thank you very much, and it looks like you are doing such a great job at Blue Layer. So yeah, so now we start with our second part of this webinar. The purpose of this is just to ask some questions, because we already gathered some specific questions, mostly from project developers side, because they need to understand, for example, why are these data tools relevant in today's markets, and why should a project developer invest in this technology? We need to understand that there is a cost involved in using either Blue Layer, Canop, or both. So a lot of questions from the project developers: why should I engage into these type of solutions? And yeah, please, I will let you two to answer this specific question. Thank you.
I'm happy to start, Derman, if you're okay with that.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. I think it's a very good question, and I think that in today's market, trust and transparency have been challenged in the voluntary carbon market more broadly, and project developers are being asked to do more to showcase the actions they're taking, but also the outcomes they're tracking in projects. And so in that sense, advanced tools and technology are just one way to showcase a project's quality. And that could be by collecting, by analyzing, or by sharing more data, or a combination of all of that. So digital tools can make it easier to share data, to make data available. They can increase transparency for a project, which we think is more important today than ever in today's market context.
Yeah, and thanks, Vivian. And I think I would add, I'm fully aligned, of course, with what you said. I would add that Also, technology enable accessing more reliable data than doing it, on a very manual basis where mistakes can happen along the way. So that reduce the mistakes, error. Also, it is more structured, so it brings more confidence because it's also structured. One thing that we've also noticed at Canop, and we're working on that, is compliance and validation by VVBs. When you have a structured data, it clearly streamlines validation. And that's a big piece, because we know that validation costs a lot of money. So when data is structured, and that's particularly feasible with the latest methodologies, then you save time during this certification validation process. Also, we believe that having that data put together in a structured way, it's easier to attract investment, because now we see that investors are looking for more professionalism, sorry, in the industry. So of course, adopting those technologies is something that investors are now looking for when selecting project developers.
Thank you, both of you. And actually, I hear very, very good things. So, structured data gives you then this digitized information, gives you the capability to share and showcase like the projects, giving actually bringing more trust in the market, as well as it facilitates then compliance because it reduces mistakes at the end. So it's very important, this data. But actually, and that would be my our second question, like this brings like, okay, I have digitized data structure, but there are a lot of tools, different type of tools available for project developers. But how should a project developer decide in which one to invest? Or because when you start the digitizing journey, normally it's kind of a headache for a project developer. So how should they define which tool to use, and how do these tools combine with on ground data? Like, yeah, how is this process? So if you can elaborate more on that, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. I can kick this off, as we do work a lot with ground data. But basically, I will start by answering that there is indeed a lot of tools available out there, a lot of many startups, which is great. It's a very, very active industry. I think developers need to start looking at, okay, where do I need support? Which piece of my process do I need to improve? Because depending on the stage, then different tools are available. Then in regards to ground truth data at Canop, of course, we work with satellite imagery. That's our main source of data. But we believe at Canop that, of course, once again, depending on the project development stage, but when you are at a late stage, when you are during the crediting period, or even at the PDD stage, you need to combine it with ground data, institute data for the project, to reduce uncertainty. So typically at Canop, we have productized the process to incorporate institute data within our models in order to reduce uncertainty. That's really, our customers just have to upload their ground truth data file on the platform, and that's automatically taken into consideration. So that's very useful. It is useful to improve the biomass quantification, for instance, but it's also useful when it comes to produce a specific land cover map with specific classes, for instance, or to work on tree species. The value of ground truth is very high. Just to open that, what we see regarding ground truth, because you've mentioned ground truth one, we see also a number of startups that do specialize in ground truth collection. Actually, that's very interesting. So there is indeed a lot of players, and it's not always easy to see and to distinguish who does what in the industry. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's all very aligned with how we see things. I'd say maybe two or three things in addition to what Roman just said. First, be realistic about how much you can do in-house. And so we are seeing quite a few players trying to hire teams internally to build tools. And we always think, that's a strategy that might work in the short term, but in the long term, it's more costly and takes a lot more internal effort. So over time, we encourage our clients to think about how they combine software tools and find solutions that are interoperable between them, so that they can get the best of each world and essentially have reliable software that is maintained by a third party. And so that's, one place to start is, in-house is not necessarily a great place in the longer term. The second is, find your biggest pain points and maybe find, based on your activity and your methodology, what are the areas where you do need a specialist tool versus where you could have a generalist tool like Blue Layer that integrates with specialist tools. And then think again about how you're going to, combine different data sets. And so make sure that you choose tools where you could combine the data that they have with data from the ground, exactly like Roman said, Canop can do. Finally, I think it's also, important to know what data you need to share with whom. And so make a plan and, work with your internal team to understand what your stakeholder needs are. And so buyers in your space, what kind of data do they want to see and how much of that needs to be digital? Investors in your space, the rating agencies. And that is different. That does differ from activity to activity. And the solutions available will be different from activity to activity. But overall, we feel that the most important thing is to have a central platform and a central strategy on how you can integrate all of those tools. And that's something at Blue Layer we very often advise our clients how to do, not just through our own platform, but overall kind of looking at their technology strategy as a whole.
Great approach, actually, and Vivian, I agree with you. Like many project developers, a lot of companies or assessment companies or buyers, they also start doing things in-house, which is a good thing. But at the end, trying to scale those type of solutions is difficult, and relying on a vendor to have this actually like in a more scalable way is very good. And actually, as Roman mentioned, this is a way of improving yourself as a project developer, and also improving your assessment of projects when you're going in the buyer's side. So, and this leads us to the next question, because then should then buyers have access to these type of tools, and how can actually project developers then leverage different kinds of tools to get broader access to the market? And more specifically, like their expectation is to get better prices, of course, because I would assume that if they have better and more supporting evidence and data, then they would be expecting also better prices. So please, Roman first, and Vivian secondly, if you want to tell us a little bit more about that, from your experience.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Juan. I can start again. So yeah, we do believe that indeed providing buyers access to advanced tools like Blue Layer, Canop, can significantly enhance transparency, and that enables building trust. It enables also to get to a premium pricing. And actually, just to connect to what you said, Juan, when the data is produced by a third party and not internally, that's also an extra layer of security for the buyers, because it's built by a third party, so there is less risk for buyers. So that on top of, we think that that's a key. It should be factored in when a project developers is considering in-house or vendor or data from vendors. So yes, at Canop, coming back to Canop, we do facilitate actually this sharing data to buyers. Actually, our customers can share the access of our platform to buyers, and that's increase transparency. And I think we will see that more and more, because so far the tools were quite closed and it was really separated. The tools for project developers and tools for buyers were like two different worlds. But we will see, I believe, in the short term, more tools more connection and more connectivity between the two sides. That's for sure, and I think the market needs that to grow.
I think that's very right, Ramon. Completely agree with you. I'd say also, there is there are some differences in different types of buyers, and so some buyers tend to do their own diligence in projects and would like access to more data tools. Some work through intermediaries, and those intermediaries need to have access to the data. That might be third-party consultants or diligence providers, and so that's another way to look at the issue. But in either case, it's also important to know who is reading the data. And so, for instance, we find that many buyers don't have the technical expertise to understand and digest, raw data files. And we've heard that, from buyers repeatedly. They would like to get a sense of more standardized data and more structured data. And they would like to get that from a third-party source, like Roman said. But it also needs to be in an output format that they can read and understand. And so that's something else that's important to keep in mind, and to make sure that data delivered to buyers is appropriate for the person that's reading it. Regardless, we do see a big trend towards more transparency, and that is not a negotiable from buyers these days. It's a demand that they have. And so it's also important for developers to understand what type of data buyers are getting access to, either through their own systems or independently through third-party systems, because very often that data also creates questions, and the more data the buyers have, the more questions they're going to have about the project, and so the project developers need to be prepared to answer those questions. In our case, Blue Layer is a tool that is for project developers, and project developers can use Blue Layer to share data with stakeholders that they choose. And so the data that project developers host on Blue Layer is proprietary to that project developer. So we don't onboard buyers as a customer unless a developer has asked us to make data accessible to that specific buyer. However, we find that over time, there is more desire to share more directly. And often, what we could do as a platform is also clarify what data has come to us through a third-party source versus through collection methods of the developer themselves. And the buyers care about that, as Roman said, that independence of a collection or analytics platform is important to the buyer community.
Great. Actually, I love to think about at EcoRegistry. We always consider ourselves also as a software solutions provider, focus on data-driven solutions. So data-driven means you need data to make informed decisions. And when you have data, then more questions will come, and the right questions will come. And the better data you have, like audited by third-party data, that is not you, the one that are giving the data, but it's actually a third party validating that data, the better for the market. And also one way that there is also a discussion in the market, and I fully agree with you two guys, is the standardized data. We should have a standardized format of sharing that type of data so that I get all the information from a project and I fully understand what the project is all about and what they are doing right, and what they are doing wrong. So saying that, we have started actually a little bit already with the buyer, like on the buyer side, what their expectations are. Maybe we should actually get into the buyer's behavior, like what are you seeing in the market regarding buyer behavior lately, and what are buyers looking for in projects and actually expecting from project developers. So yeah, please, Vivian, if you can elaborate a little bit on that. I believe you two have a lot to add on that.
Definitely. Thank you, Juan. I think a lot of people have been describing the market over the past year as, somewhat difficult. And I think, we're not necessarily seeing that, in that same way. We're actually seeing that the market is almost separated into two extremes. And so we're seeing a lot more willingness of buyers to pay for high quality. And so we're seeing, quality projects, the way the buyers define that, to be both in scarce supply and also to be seeing higher prices. particularly in methodologies such as ARR, and particularly projects that are using the newest Vera methodology. What we see, buyers wanting is demand for projects that can demonstrate things like additionality, sound project design, and co-benefits. And all of those things are important because they separate projects in different tiers, and we're increasingly seeing that the prices for the highest, let's say, desirable projects, or the most desirable projects, continue to grow, especially in the outer years of offtake agreements as you get closer to sort of 2030. So we're seeing prices today that you wouldn't have imagined would be possible a year ago. And we're seeing those prices in projects that are delivering co-benefits, that are delivering biodiversity benefits, that are using newer methodologies, that are using technology tools, and that can demonstrate all of those things clearly. So as Roman said earlier, in terms of investors, wanting their project developers to be using digital data tools, it's the same for long-term buyers as well. And we're definitely seeing that in the market itself. Now, in that quality segment of the market, we're definitely seeing scarcity. And so we're seeing, fewer projects, newer projects with not a lot of current issuance, but more future issuance. And so we are also seeing the market moving more towards ex ante, and so pre-issuance type of sales for newer projects. But overall, the trend is undoubtedly towards quality. And so it's up to project developers to really be able to showcase and share the right data to demonstrate those quality characteristics and obtain those higher prices. And that's how we see things right now. Roman, I don't know if you would like.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with what you said, Vivian. It's very true. At Canopso, we are a technology provider, and actually, what we have a strong bias when we see the market, actually, because our customers are actually developing only high quality projects, and I think that's quite an evidence. I mean, we barely speak with like project developers trying to develop pro-qualitative projects because they're not interested in technology. Clearly, the ones that are buying technology today are checking many boxes on quality, transparency, and then needs to adopt technology to prove the efforts they're making in order indeed to get to the market at a higher price point. That's for sure. And Vivian, you mentioned the latest methodologies from Vera. Indeed, these methodologies that are based on performance benchmark, we can mention VM47, the latest on ARR, but probably more methodologies in the near future will also align with this approach. It requires technology, clearly, and teams. Some project developer teams try to do it internally, but clearly what we see, people are struggling. So it's very useful to leverage teams out there that do specialize on technology to demonstrate in a very strong way the additionality using those latest methodology. But yeah, what we see is clearly a lot of traction from investors, developers on those most modern methodologies. That's for sure. And so to add a bit more detail, but yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for both, because I believe the market is evolving a lot, and actually we need to understand that this market is growing, and it started actually with, let's say, on a time where there was not the technology that we have today. So as it evolves, actually, it's very good that project developers engage in this type of technology, because it actually does fulfill the expectations of the buyers at the end. So, but these tools, we need to understand that they require investment from the project developers. So how do they how should they think about that expenditure that they will be engaging then in this process? Because at the end, it's all about they are spending this money, they are investing this money. So please, Roman and Vivian, if you can tell us a little bit more what you think about this.
Sure. Thanks, Juan, for, I think it's a very relevant question. It has a cost. So of course, the return on investment needs to be positive. But from what we see, it is positive, and it should be seen as a strategic investment. I don't think there will be a way in the years to come to operate and develop projects without technology. So we're clearly, the world is changing on that standpoint. So technology, as I've said previously, clearly helps on compliance, on validation, on certification. It streamlines the process. So that's a big plus already. But also, and we've discussed that, it enhances the project's appeal to investors and to partners. So more revenues. So you can drive down the cost, the internal cost operation, but also it drives the revenues up. And sometimes when I say it drives revenues up because more transparency for sure. But also sometimes you can also prove more additionality. And typically in the case of VM47, coming back to the performance benchmark, Vera offers different possibilities to base the stocking index to prove the additionality. And project developers can use very traditional index, such as NDVI or NDFI, which is a way to do, but also actually technology now enables you to base the stocking index on more modern data layers, such as above ground biomass that we compute here at Canop. And clearly it makes a difference when it comes to measure the difference over time. And so it enables to value the entirety of the impact of your project. And that's a big piece, I think. It helps using the most modern index or layers, enables you to capture the impact in the very early days of the project because you capture more additionality, but also over time there is no saturation that you can see on more traditional index. So that's why we strongly encourage teams to really think twice about selecting a technology for those most modern methodologies. I think you're in mute, Vivian.
You're in mute, Vivian.
Classic problem. I was going to mention the same things, Roman. I think there's one case to be made about doing a payback or an ROI based on cost savings, but the strongest case is actually on revenue enhancements, and we see that with our tool as well. Additionally, I think the quality of your technology stack is going to be a consideration that is a must-have. And so we're finding that newer investors and buyers almost have a requirement for projects that they invest in to have the right technology stack. And so in that sense, the cost of not having technology is more than just the things that we mentioned. It's actually the ability to launch projects off the ground and get the right partners on board from the beginning. And so in that sense, we also very often will help our customers with doing some of that math. And helping them understand, what the commitment is financially and why they should make that. So, the opportunity that you get through technology to maximize your revenues and to reduce your costs is one thing, but then also finally there is a reputational challenge of mistakes. And Roman, you also mentioned that it's less likely that you get mistakes, creeping through the system. But reputation is the most important thing for any business. And so having, an auditable third-party record of a lot of your data, being able to trace back where things came from, having, software that lets you reconcile between the registry and your own accounts and keep proper tracks, especially in our case, in terms of things like revenue share and credit allocations and where those go. And being able to prove that provenance and that destination is quite important from a compliance perspective as well.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. If you have an asset where you can prove with the right evidence that everything that you did exists and that you're investing correctly, it's actually then it's not just about getting broader access, but also better access, and actually allowing projects also um, to have a better cash flow then at the end. So it has a lot of positive positive results engaging this type of technology. So one last question that we have already gathered from a lot of project developers is like, yeah, okay, this is very good tools, nice, I like them, very nice, but why it's not there an acceptance or an adoption right now abroad the market? Like, then what does the industry need to do to increase this adoption and acceptance of more digitized way of working or these digital technologies? Like, what do we need to do as an industry to start going in this path?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I'd say more collaboration. And so, given that technology is no longer an option, but it should be a given, we do need different actors to work together on two things. The first is data standardization, and the second is interoperability. And so being able to connect between different systems, making API endpoints available between companies, which is something we've always done with partners. But also in terms of the standardization, I think that is a key point, because this industry still suffers from lack of standard data and even lack of standard terminology. And so depending on what geography you operate in, or what activity or what registry you're registered with, very often project developers have to deal with very different terminology for the same things. And that makes it very difficult to have that standardization and to have those data tools talk to each other. And so all of those things are things that we've been advocating for. I think the groups we need to get together very clearly include large project developers, but also the standard setters and registries, the rating agencies, third-party software providers across the different solution spaces. And the more we collaborate, the more we can increase data transparency in the industry and make data really available on an end-to-end basis. And that's really what's going to help establish the trust that we need to really scale the voluntary carbon markets in the way that they should to solve the climate crisis.
Thanks, Vivian. I could add on that from a impact measurement perspective, we think that organizations that need to evolve are standards, actually, because standards approve, define, and approve methodologies. And from an impact measurement perspective, those standards are the organizations that need to, that are able, to push the adoption of new technologies. And we start to see that with some standards, which is good. But from our perspective, it clearly does not go as fast as it should. Even recently, many standards just say that no, digital MRV is not a priority, and it's hard to understand in 2024 how can digital MRV not be a priority for standards. But it is how it is. But we see that Vera is indeed quite innovative, actually. It's great to see, and probably it will push more standards to evolve as well. But yeah, from our perspective, standards are the best place to increase adoption at the impact measurement level. Oh, we lost Juan, maybe.
At a very critical point.
Indeed. Oh, we really lost him. Maybe we'll have questions.
Yeah, we were about to get questions from the audience.
Indeed.
Which should be getting collected in the background. So maybe we give EcoRegistry a couple of minutes.
Hi.
Sure.
Yeah, I got a connection problem, so sorry about that. But actually, you were discussing things that are very interesting. I couldn't see you both, but I could hear you quite good. So one of the questions that we have got from the audience is also about, okay, we have these tools now. Like, what is the acceptance, for example, from standards registry platforms? Like, how do you see this coming? Because we would assume that it has also an impact on the methodologies and on the program themselves. Like, how do you see the acceptance of some of those standards and some of those platforms right now? So please, if you have some experience, if you would like to share this experience, at the end I could also share my thoughts about it. So please, man, if you have.
I can start. Yes, we see things moving clearly in the right direction. It took time. When we started Canops 3 years ago, I don't think there was a methodology that required remote sensing typically. And now we start to see things moving, and of course, it's a good news. It's good news for investors. It's good news for the market because it creates transparency and certainty on the impact, and that's what the market needs. And so, from our perspective, the leading standard on that point, on that front, is Vera with the latest ARR methodology. And we actually see a lot of traction on that methodology, and probably for the right reason, because it has a solid way to quantify additionality. So I believe we believe that Vera should also soon move other methodology to using the same framework, which is also a good thing. So yeah, I don't know if that's my views here, but yeah, we clearly more methodology will soon leverage remote sensing to assess impact, and yeah.
Maybe if I can add, the only thing I would add is that you're seeing increasing acceptance of digital MRV methods, but also, you're seeing those that data being able to be submitted more digitally over time. And those, are two separate things. It's the use of the tools and then how the data gets from point A to point B. Both of those are changing across the board. We're seeing movement in the right direction. But regardless, there is technology that project developers can be using for their own work before the data gets to the standards and the methodologies, which can improve their own workflows, can improve the interaction with the VVBs, with their consultants, and can also make more data available to buyers without even having to go through standards. And so that's, those two work streams can move independently as well.
Perfect, Vivian. And actually, you mentioned something that it's important that a lot of people tend to forget. So, it's not just the standards, methodologies, and protocol adopting this type of technology. It's also the validation and verification bodies, the ones that. So some of the things that we need to change is we would need to change from assessing specific data, actually also to move into assessing sensors, digitized tools, algorithms. Like there needs to be also a change on the way that we are doing right now the auditing process, because for example at the end you will have a project that might not go on the field and measure every single tree. For example, they don't measure every single tree, right? But let's take they measure some trees, and then they measure their width and height and stuff like that, and then they quantify the biomass. So to change it to having accurate measurement system, but those measurement systems should be also how should I put it, like maybe certified that they are accurate somehow, or certify that the algorithms that we are using are actually accurate to the biomass being assessed. These type of methodologies, they will have an impact on the processes that the validation and verification bodies are currently doing in the assessment process. So that's also something I would love to add.
And just to share my experience, Juan, that indeed we had recent interactions with different VVBs, and we see a lot of, they're open to that. Actually, they're very interested in assessing these approaches. And I believe that maybe 2 years ago we would have the door would have been closed or almost closed, while it's very different today. So it's an evidence that the market is moving and wants innovation. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, it's great because when you see this happening, it will also have some let's say some bad news for specific projects, for example. And that's also one last question that I got from the public. Like, how do you manage it when, for example, there are maybe miscalculations or misinterpretations, where you have some evidence on the field that tells you one data, and then you have evidence from satellite imaging or other type of evidence that tells you another data? How you bring those together to actually what is the truth? So, because that's also one worry that project developer has. If I have quantified some data with with the with the way that I have been working over the last years, but then here's this new technology gives me another data. Which one is the right one? Which one is true? Uh, do you start a laboratory process where you do some research? Like, please, if you can tell us a little bit more about that, because that's one of the worries of project developers. I don't know,
Yeah, I
Vivian,
can
maybe
try
you
to
want
answer
to mention
it, more generally, and then if Ramon has any examples, always welcome. Um, Generally, I think the best practice is to try to understand why the data sets are different. And often, there will be a reason. Sometimes the project developer already knows the reason. And that's what I meant earlier when I said sometimes buyers get access to data, and that raises a lot of questions. Sometimes it's also important to know how to answer those questions, and you find out those questions and answers by going through this process of seeing where the discrepancies are in the data sets, and then looking closer into it. So oftentimes one of the two tools is wrong or is not accurate. If the differences are small, it could be down to judgments that you're making. And so, if one is an estimation and the other is a measurement, for example, it could be that the measurement is more accurate than the estimation. But oftentimes we find that, there might be something that's confusing the data. And that is just, a matter of finding the answer. But overall, generally, we find that through those processes, what we've heard from our clients is that they tend to learn more about their data sets and more about their projects. Very often they will make adjustments to the way that they're measuring things. And so it's always a good idea to get as much data as you can and then try to get to the more reasonable conclusion from there. I don't know, Roman, if you have any examples where your data has contradicted what people have seen on the ground.
It happens. It's yeah, but it happens. Yeah, for sure. It happens. But yeah. No, I don't have a specific example in mind right now, but yeah, of course, particularly with the oldest methodologies, there is discrepancy.
Yeah, we have actually at EcoRegistry, we supported one process where they used LiDAR technology, and we actually, for agriculture projects, and we actually had to take down some of the trees, bring them to the lab, assess them properly, like research a little bit more, and then we came together with the two methodologies to actually do more accurate results. So yeah, finalizing this is just already time. So I want to actually thank everybody, all the viewers, everybody that will be viewing actually this afterwards, because this is a very interesting topic, and I believe it's the future of carbon markets or biodiversity. You can call any environmental asset needs to have digitized monitoring, reporting, and verification processes. I also want to thank you both, Vivian and Roman, for having this time to discuss with us, to spending the preparation, everything, and all we did before coming to this webinar. Please, thank you very much. This is a great effort that we're doing, and happy to have you both here. And no, great, and I wish you both the best with your work. I really admire what you're doing, so thank you very much. I don't know if you want to say goodbye and say some last thoughts.
Vivian,
For me,
please.
thank you. Sorry, Roman.
Yes.
Thank you, Juan and EcoRegistry. That's it.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Thank you, Juan, again for inviting Ken up to this webinar. Really interesting, actually. It's good to deep dive on technology. So I'm always positive about doing so. So thanks a lot.
Thank you both, and yeah, thank you all to the viewers.
And thank you to the audience.
Thank you to the viewers.